They say home is where the heart is, but it's also a place for creativity, design, decor, renovation, entertaining, and a cozy spot for showcasing our personalities to those we invite inside. If you love home decor shows but wish they had a local point of view, then don't go anywhere. I'm Kasie Savage, and this is The Nest, your destination for all things home, decor, and lifestyle with a neighborhood feel. So cozy up, grab a drink, even if it's champagne, and get comfy, because today we've got the experts, certified pros, and all the tips, tricks, picks, and advice you need to create your best nest. Cloud white, Oxford white, Arctic white, whiter than white. Have you ever been in a paint store and you think your head is going to blow off with all of the different shades of white? And really and truly, if you pick the wrong one, it's obvious. And that goes for any paint color, which is why we have designer extraordinaire Sarah Hepburn of Sarah Hepburn. Do you like how I always add a little Sarah Hepburn design?
But yes.
Extraordinaire. Now, you are a certified true color expert.
Yes.
So you have gone through all of the training to be able to expertly tell us the difference between all of those various whites I mentioned and which one suits which kind of a room and why. So what's the first step in choosing a neutral?
So the first step in choosing a neutral is understanding what other elements in the space you have. So you want to take a look at your flooring. So if it's a bathroom, your tile, that is on your floor and on the walls, or your kitchen cabinets or your countertops, or the fabrics that you have on your furniture, and understanding what's the scheme that you're looking for. So
in other words, paint comes last, not first.
Paint is the final decision that you make when you're doing a space. Think about how on a per cost basis, it's a little disruptive to paint, but if you're paying for a gallon of paint compared to ripping up your countertop or your tiles in your bathroom, it's a heck of a lot cheaper to repaint than it is to replace all your hard finishes.
Okay, so you've brought, which, you know, from afar, you might not be able to tell the difference between these white swatches, but talk us through these different whites and what we should be looking for.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at white, what you want to do, and it's you think about things in terms of clean versus dirty. And dirty is not a dirty word or anything like that.
Does anyone want dirty white?
Absolutely. And it depends and it depends on what your finishes your finishes are. Dirtier can mean something that's a little bit creamier, right? So if we look at something like this this fabric here, for example, or this one, it works better as we get into some of our more creamier finishes. If we look at this piece, for example, and we look at the brighter of the white, we can see that it ties in on that end. So you always want to look at, is it a bright color? Is it a slightly more toned down color, or more muted, dirtier color? And the big thing when selecting color is to compare.
Now, here's the problem. You get to the paint store, you think you know what you want, you saw it in a magazine, which, by the way, everything you see, whether it's on, you know, my own Instagram page, a magazine, or anywhere, has been filtered, tweaked, exposure. So you can't necessarily browse through a magazine and say, oh, this says, you know, bleak or beige, and expect it to look the same way in your house, but the swatches are so small.
Yeah, I mean, like these little tiny 2x2 swatches look great, and they make pretty art pictures or art projects sometimes. However, you can tape these up all over your wall, but you won't get a real true feeling for what it looks like. So what I do is, once I narrow down colors, I have a collection of like well over 175 of these that I've collected over the years. But what I do is they're painted up on large boards.
So you physically paint these?
Yes.
Oh,
you physically
that's
paint
how
them.
You get them.
But once you start to understand how many you have and what you need, you start to understand a bit more. But a lot of people used to paint them on their walls.
Right.
And people still do that. But one of the challenges is that you're then comparing your proposed new color to the existing wall color.
Which never looks good.
Which never looks good. So if you were to take your the color that you're looking at doing, and you can move it around the room on your page.
Right.
So that way you can say, I'm going to put it next to my baseboards and I can say, hey, this actually looks really good next to my baseboards here. Or I can narrow it down, because color, it's all about comparison.
As opposed to comparing it against your current wall and then saying, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, ooh, I don't know which one's which and how to do it.
Okay, now quick question, we don't have a ton of time, but everyone is so fixated on neutrals these days. Gray, beige. When you can't decide, I go grayish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are people even painting with colors anymore? Because it seems like we're all afraid of color.
Neutrals are really popular right now. It's moved from something where you've got a real blue-gray, like a Stonington gray, moving into some more of your grays, like your Edgecombe gray or Revere pewter. But then there's cases where something is, the undertones in it are more of a blue-green or a blue-gray, and you can start to understand what the undertones that you're looking for.
So in other words, nobody's painting anything purple, because it sounds like even the blues still have the word gray.
It depends. Yeah, I'm seeing in smaller spaces like powder rooms or kids' rooms where there's still color. So that's a good spot, right?
A powder room.
Absolutely.
People always think if it's a tiny space, you can't do a bold color, but you're saying do it.
Wrap it up in the bold color.
Love it.
It's a lot of fun that way.
Love it. Wrap it up in the bold color.
Yeah, it's like a present.
That's great advice. Okay, you're going to stick around because we'll see you at the end of the show. Thank you so much. And that explained a lot. Did not know there were that many differences with whites. Coming up after the break, we are going to talk about how to choose the right contractor with David Butler from Allaire Homes. And believe me, there are a lot of things that we should all be looking for, and we'll learn more right after this, so stick around. Okay, we've all been in that sticky situation before where you have something that needs doing around the house and you think to yourself, well, do I call my cousin's friend, or do I look in the phone book, or do I just Google and look for a contractor? How do you know how to find the right contractor? I think it's really intimidating for a lot of us, which is why we brought in David Butler of Allaire Homes, because not only are you a contractor, but in your previous life, you had to hire contractors.
That's right.
So what are some of the, first of all, before we even get someone in to do a job, what kind of due diligence should we be doing?
Well, as the client, you want to have some sort of a vision or a scope of the project so that if people are coming to your house to talk to you about it, you want to have some understanding. It doesn't have to be cast in stone, but you want to be prepared for when that contractor's showing up. But then before calling the contractor, you want to do as much auditing of them as possible, whether it's online, there's different tools available there. But then when you go to call them, there's specific questions you want to ask them, whether they have proper insurance, can you check some of their references, do they have a safety policy in place, do they have WSIB, are they expecting payments in cash or check? What's the payment schedule? All those things are very important.
Okay, one quick sec. You mentioned insurance. I've done this before. You ask the question, they say, yeah, I do. Should they be producing, is there proof of insurance that we should be looking for?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
You can get a one-pager, proof of liability insurance, starts at around $2 million site liability insurance. Some people go up to 5. But you should ask for a proof of that, and then you should have all the details there that you can very easily say, here's the period that we're covered from, start date, finish date, proper name of the company that matches that you're writing the checks for, all that sort of stuff.
In the province of Ontario, is there a resource, a place that we can go to where we can call up and say, hi, I'm looking to hire XYZ, beyond Business Bureau, Better Business Bureau, is there like a contractors association or something? Where would we look for that?
Yeah, that's a good point. There are different organizations. So in the GTA, you have Build and Renomark are 2 programs that you can go and check there. Basically, your home builders association, whether it's Kitchener, London, Toronto, they all have them. That's an excellent resource as well. And you want to make sure they have proper WSIB as well. It's very, very important and mandatory in the province of Ontario.
Okay, so the contractor shows that you've done your due diligence, you've done your research, they show up at your house, they enter the home, first glance, I mean, shirtless, tank tops. I know tank tops with overalls became popular thanks to certain Mr. Fix-Its. But what kind of a presentation should we be looking for in terms of professionalism?
Yeah, you want to make sure, I mean, it depends on the size of the company. They might be owner-operators, so they are working in the field. They might be a little bit dusty coming from a job site. That's not the end of the world,
so
that's fine.
don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a contractor by the dust on his boots.
Yeah, but if he doesn't take his shoes off at the door and walks in with muddy boots or dirty boots or dusty boots, that's a sign.
Yeah, that's a sign that the job site might also be unclean once they get going.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
and what else, once, we're asking for references, how deep should we dig into references, or should we just kind of surface call the first person and?
No, you've got to check, you want to speak to some of their existing clients, previous clients. You want to ask a lot of very difficult questions.
Like?
Did they have any experiences with quality? Was there any delays? How was the whole experience? Was it pleasant? Was it challenging? Look, large renovations in your home are very invasive, and they are challenging on both sides of the fence. And then you want to get to know the person a little bit as best you can in that short period of time. Do you feel that that person is listening and answering your questions when you're asking them, or are they just talking all the time and not asking you questions or answering your questions specifically? So that bit of that personal touch to it as well is important.
This is probably the biggest pain point for clients and contractors: pricing. Things do go over, lack of communication. Hey, can you just add a little this, a little that? Should homeowners always have in their mind, if they say 1,000, in my head I'll make it 1,300? Should you always just buffer for 30%? Or how do you negotiate the relationship when pricing seems to fluctuate so much during a job? Or should it not?
Well, it depends on if you were doing a custom home, there are certain elements that you can only do budgetary. For example, the first one, excavation. We don't know what's under the ground, whether we're going to hit rock, water. So, but what you want to do is a full, proper design and estimation process so that you can rid yourself of many variables as possible.
Surprises, as they're often called.
Or allowances. So they made an allowance for something, but then what your allowance vision is and the contractor's vision could be very different. So it makes way more sense to do your due diligence, proper full design and estimation process prior to starting construction to create as much cost certainty as possible.
I like it. Again, about planning.
Yes.
Planning and being organized and not being afraid of asking those questions, because it really truly is like a job interview. Okay, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere, because we need your expertise back at the end of this show. So in just a little break, we will be back with the editor of York Life magazine. It's Jackie Kovacs. She's here to share the Love It list this week, and wait until you see what she brought us. Think about birdies. We'll be back. It's the Love It list with editor of York Life magazine, Jackie Kovacs. This is where she does all the running around, drives her car into the ground, goes into every shop there is in the region, and finds us the very best finds. York Life magazine, by the way, if you haven't found it on your doorstep, find it on a neighbor's and take it home, because it is so good, if I can say that. Okay, so Jackie, I love that you have found us a style that, even though I think is timeless, you're saying is just reaching its peak right now.
It's
taking flight.
It is. It is indeed. It is indeed taking flight. Birds are huge right now, and it's so easy to add a touch of our winged friends to your home. For example, it's just a little teeny tiny piece of art that you could, it's little, you can put it anywhere. These, oh, by the way, all from Niche Decor.
Niche Decor, love Niche Decor.
I should say right away, they've got a location in Aurora and a new location in Newmarket as well. So you can find these items there. But this is one of a collection of prints, and so you could get a grouping of them, or you could just have a little nod depending on how bird crazy you are.
Were they all different birds as well?
They're different. There's a collection of these that are the same kind of gilded bird bird, but then they've got ones that are more like line art and ones that are watercolor. So there's a wide range.
And in those metallics as well, which is so, so nice.
Yes.
Love the fact that, you know, nature, I just feel as though it's timeless.
It absolutely
This
is.
would look great on a wall today, 30 years from now. I mean, it's nature, it's birds.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about these little guys down
these
here? They
guys-
seem like a little more tribal when I look at them.
Yeah, they do. They've got that kind of textury thing going on, the pattern. These little guys are, again, you know, you could buy them in a pair, you could buy them on their own. You could have it sitting on your foyer table. You could have it on an end table. You could have it on, if you've got like shelving units. Just a nice
you
little
can
touch.
Feel there's so much texture to them as well. They're really pretty. I wonder if you could make them almost like little bookends if you stuck them side by side.
If the books were light enough.
If they were light enough.
These aren't terribly heavy.
They are quite light. They are quite light, and $24
Yes, very
each
affordable.
at Niche Decor. Even when you put together a little vignette.
Yeah, a little birdie vignette.
A little bird vignette
for your nest.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. If you were taking care and decorating your nest, you need some little birds in your nest. So I'm going to scoot these little birds over. Jackie, do you want to grab?
I do.
Pillows. Do you not love pillows?
And
Pillows are
what
so
better
great.
way to feather your nest than with a cushy bird pillow?
So many
so
plays
pretty.
on words that we've got going on here. Feather
So
your nest.
pretty. It's lovely and it's neutral. It's not kitschy.
Ooh, it feels
it's classic.
down-filled.
Yeah, and very affordable. This one is $65, and one of a number. So if you could just have one on your couch, just to kind of give it that bird on trend and yet cozy feeling, or you could have a pile of them.
You know what I'm noticing as well? Gone are the days. I mean, the common theme, besides the fact that these are all birds, the common theme here is that these are all neutral. So gone are the days where it's, you know, a big blue jay or a big red cardinal. Here we're looking at some feathered friends that are all neutral, so they match with our neutral decor, our neutral
just
palettes.
a bit of a quieter, more elegant approach, and yet you're still contemporary and on trend.
Oh, so nice. Okay, speaking of contemporary and speaking of gorgeous, we are going to talk in our next segment, and we're going to talk about decorating a space, and I think these neutrals are going to look very good there, Jackie Kovacs. Now, I will top your car up with fuel soon because you've been running around like crazy, and I know you'll be back next week with some more goodies. But right now we're going to take a quick break, and then we come back with our panel of pros, and they answer your viewer questions about design, decor. Don't forget to visit our Facebook page, The Nest with Kasie Savage. There you can post your decor dilemma or problem and get our pros to answer it for free. That's a major bonus right there. Okay, so we'll be back in just a bit. Stay with us. Okay, probably the most exciting segment of our show is where we get our panel of pros together and answer your burning questions. So this week we have a question sent to us by Antoinette in Newmarket, who sent us in a picture of her, just a dead space in her foyer, saying, help, what do I do here? I don't want to do the traditional circular table. Plus, when you have a curved wall, Antoinette says every time she tries to hang a piece of art, it inevitably falls off the nail. So we're looking to our pros. We have our design expert, Sarah Hepburn of Sarah Hepburn Design. Thank you so much for sticking around. David Butler, who we just learned likes a deep fried breaded chicken sandwich over veal. This is the type of information we glean when it's a commercial break. And then Jackie Kovacs, who looked horrified when he said deep fried, is here to give us some tips as well. So let's take our hungry selves out of our hungry selves for a minute and focus on this little space. So I think so many of us who have homes that are 20, 25 years old, builder box homes, have these dead spaces in our foyer that we don't know what to do with, right? So let's take a look at this space and come up with some ideas and put our professional hats on for a second if we can. So in this space with the photo, there's just basically a dead open staircase, and what most people stick just some sort of a little center table around there. But what can you do to jazz up this otherwise dead zone in a house? And let's start with Sarah. What are you seeing here? I see you nodding and thinking. So there's something going on.
There's some wheels churning
Yes.
in my head. So one of the things is, I mean, it presents an opportunity to welcome guests and welcome people to your home. So yes, you can put a table. Depends on if you need like a natural drop zone of sorts. But I would consider adding creating a bit of a vignette or a small environment. So it could be a small side chair with a small round table beside it, that you can still have a drop zone if you need a bowl for keys or whatnot, but it gives people a place to sit down into, to put their shoes on, but it also creates a real welcoming environment. And it can be an opportunity to do something super fun because it's not totally connected to either the living room or dining room that may be adjacent to it.
So do you have to tie everything in together design-wise, or is this, because it's a small little space, an opportunity to
it could be an opportunity to inject a
and...
wild color into the chair that you put into it. So if you have neutrals throughout the rest of the home, as we were talking about earlier, this might be an opportunity to pull in that bright, cheery pattern or color, as long as it relates to the rest of the space.
And what about scale-wise when you're in an open foyer like that?
So scale-wise, you want something, because you've got the height of your staircase in there, you want something that respects the scale of the staircase. So you don't want anything that's too short and wide, but you want, proportionally, you want it to be a decent size and height back of the chair. Yeah.
Okay, David, I'm interested to hear what you have to say, and I'm wondering if it's going to involve mounting a TV in this space.
No TV this time, but
David loves his man caves and any opportunity to transform that space. So I'm curious what you would like to add to this.
Yeah, you could. Some people will add a carpet runner up the stairs for comfort and appearance. You can also consider some nice wainscoting up the side of the staircase. And then the railing is fine, but I would change that curled sort of newel post to a fixed single newel post.
How hard is that to do?
It's a little bit tricky. That's something for the skilled professional to do for sure.
Do you have to replace the entire railing in order to make that happen, or is that just
No, it depends on where the cut is between the turn and the handrail. But you can cut it and then fit it in a new newel post so that
and that would
it
look
matches.
a little more contemporary.
Yeah, I think it'd be a little more like we see a lot of that in our renovation side where we're changing out the handrail there and putting in a single newel post. Looks nicer.
Okay, and Jackie, of our love it list, what are you thinking?
Well, a couple of thoughts. I mean, you could put a kind of a cool wallpaper on that wall to give it some personality. Also, if you have a nice console table, you can think in terms of scale of, taller candles or vases, and you can kind of create some interest that way. That's what, sort of easy solutions with some impact right away.
Wallpaper in general. Is this ever a DIY?
It can be, but it depends on the pattern and the complexity of the wallpaper itself.
So what's the easiest type of wallpaper to hang yourself if you're a novice?
So there's a lot out there now that are peel and stick type wallpapers that you can peel it off, and it's a little more forgiving if you don't quite get it lined up properly, rather than the traditional get your glue out and go from there.
And also I think those peel and sticks come down just as easily when you decide you didn't love them as much as you thought you did.
Yes.
So much easier to take off. How many homes have you guys been in before where you're doing a project, David, maybe where you have to remove many layers of wallpaper?
Yes, that's challenging. So wallpaper, I'm personally not a big fan of it, but in small single wall features, I think it's fine. We've done a fair bit of that, but I'm not doing the whole room in wallpaper. I think those days have come and gone. But
even if a customer requests it?
No, absolutely, if the customer wants it, no problem. Just more generalizing on what we see out there in the industry.
And Sarah, you a lover of wallpaper?
I'm mixed on wallpaper. I use it. It really depends on the project itself. I love it for spaces to bring pattern and interest. I've done it a couple times on the ceiling where it's a bit, gives an element to your so-called fifth wall.
Yeah.
And what you can do up there.
Nobody
as well.
thinks of the fifth wall. And speaking of pattern and interest, I really appreciate that in tying in with Jackie's love it list with all of the birds as a hot decor item that you decided to wear coincidentally, I will say,
yes,
a shirt that's covered in, and there's been a lot of debate about what kind of birds these are. I'm saying hummingbirds.
I'm close to the hummingbird.
I heard someone whisper sparrow, but they weren't confident about that. So I think in terms of adding any birds to your decor, it's always safest and lowest maintenance to add them in as decor and not live pets.
Yes.
So that's something we can all agree on. Okay, Sarah, thank you so much. David, Jackie, always giving us tons of food for thought and ideas that take flight. See how I just tied that all in? I hope you learned something new today. Hopefully you feel inspired to shop at your favorite local home store, take on a new home improvement project, maybe hire a pro if that's the smartest decision. It's all about creating your best nest. Until next week, don't forget to visit our Facebook page, The Nest with Kasie Savage. Send in your pics, share your tips, any local hot spots and finds. We love sharing, and we will see you again next week. Thank you.